Today's episode is called The Stop Button That Can't Always Stop from Detection to Enforcement and the Wall in the Way. So, last episode, we have spoken about how to catch a bad move. And that was the instant it happened. We did it online, as I told you online, and how to catch it in that way. Now, the first question that we have to ask is purely physical. Where do I actually stand to intercept the agent before it does the wrong action? That's a very good question here. So the model proposes a tool call. So this is our tool call. The runtime executes it. You wedge your check in the gap between the proposal and execute. So this is our enforcement point. And that gap is the exact same tool call boundary your telemetry spans already came from. So observability and enforcement are from the same gender or group. You are not building a new pipeline, you are adding a verb to something you already have. You're just adding an extra check. One honest limit that we have is that a boundary sees action. It doesn't see the reasoning. So it can block a bad call, but never a bad thought. The model can be talked into something malicious, and the gate only sees the clean looking tool that called that result. The intent level attacks might walk through an action level without any guard. So that's another issue we have. So the obvious move here is to add the blocker, of course. V2 any forbidden call and the enforcement is solved, right? So the next beat, I will be talking to you what is a blocker and what can it do and what can it do and what it cannot do. So here you have two rules for your support agent. They might read like the same, but they are not the same thing and you want both to be true. So I will explain to you both of these rules that you need to understand. First of all, rule 1 is to, for example, never issue a refund before approval. So this is what we call a safety property. The classic phrasing is nothing bad ever happens. And the key feature here is that the violation is an event. The instant the agent tries issue a refund without approval, there is a concrete bad action. So as we have seen in the previous video, we have explained what is a commission, and there is a concrete bad action, a log move, sitting at the boundary that we have already. So you can truncate it, you can cut the runoff, you can block it live, and there is no problem. It's very easy to detect. On the other side, as we have discussed with omissions in the previous video, let's take the example of every refund request is eventually resolved. So this is the liveness property, which is saying something good eventually happens. And here is the trap. No finite prefix ever violates this rule. At any moment, you can say any resolution just has not happened yet. So you don't know yet if you have solved that problem yet or not. So there is no bad event to point at as long as you have not reached the end of your run. So you cannot truncate your way to solve the eventually side of things. So the real theorem here is coming from Schneider's paper from 2000, and which is here we are discussing, the paper is discussing that the monitor which enforces by blocking enforces exactly the safety properties, but cannot enforce the liveness property. So even if this paper was from 2000, these rules are still correct for today with agents. So episode 18, commissions versus omissions asymmetry, was never just definition. It was really, a commission was basically a safety property. So they are blockable live, omissions are liveness, and they are not blockable live. You need to wait for the end of your execution. So if blocking only buys you safety, what do you do about the omissions? And here what you do is you just change the goal. So you stop trying to prevent the problem and you start thinking, okay, how can I remediate? How can I save myself even further problems? So if you look at the literature, and this is from my paper from 2005, the runtime enforcement automata, you have 4 possible actions. Let's start for first one, it's truncate. What truncate does is you just stop the full run and you don't continue. After that you have suppress, so you drop the one bad action and you keep running. Third is you inject a corrective action into your stream, into your process. Fourth is an edit, which is truncate plus suppress plus insert, the full model. It's a mix of everything. So if you map this onto agents, you have a commission. So for a commission, you just truncate. We have already discussed this, or you just suppress the call of the bad action. You can remediate an omission, which is insert. For example, let's say on timeouts, or let's say you have a refund that never came. So on a timeout, you inject the missing step and you fire compensating action, or you escalate to a human, or you insert human in the loop. So the rule here is to keep omissions that are remediated by insertion, never prevented by blocking. So that's something you always need to remember. This rule, never prevented by blocking. One more thing, if you are wondering where this lives in a real tool, you have agent spec. So it's a paper that's very important. So you can map your 4 actions between the stop, the user inspection, the invoke action, and the LLM self-examine to all of our 4 basics. So now, 2 honest limits I need to remind you of here. Even the full edit mode cannot reach true liveness. It's almost impossible to reach true liveness. Eventually, the idea of eventually has no idea, so no deadline to enforce. And insert a fix here assumes a safe compensating action. So as I told you already, generally in a live system, your insert decision would be taken in case you would add the human in the loop. But you don't want to, of course, add too much of the human in the loop action and not too little. So that's something we're gonna talk in the next series, because right now we are not in the architectural basics of these systems. So action-oriented process mining runs this loop today of healing, but its actions are notifications after the fact, not inline blocks. So this is something, so the inline blocks or the insert actions, you can see them today in startups that are growing really today in 2026. So one thing to know here is that not every deviation deserves a block. So if you block a low severity should rule, it's even worse sometimes than just letting the deviation go through. So what you just did, let's say you have just a style violation, for example, and you just halted your agent from continuing the whole process. That would be a dumb architectural decision, of course. So you need to have a matching between the breaking or the deviation and the measure that you're gonna take. So you have 4 levels. First of all, this is the log. So you just add it to your logs. Second is an alert. What is this meant is that you have a human. The agent continues the execution, but your human gets an alert. Now to the more interesting ones. So level number 3 is pause for a human to review. And level number 4 is block outright. So the split here, I just wanted to show you a split here, is that from here to here, these are more the should rules. From here to here, these are the must rules. And here you need to know that human review is a real primitive. So it's not a hand wave. So line graphs interrupt pauses. So this one, the graph before a tool call and waits for approval. So it's like it already exists. The ladder itself is a severity response framing. So it's not a name standard. So this is like my own categorization. This is not an industry standard, or this is ultimately just my own idea of how I see things should be done with the deployment of agentic AI. One thing very important to know, many of the ideas that I'm presenting here are my own opinion about how to deploy agentic AI. Now for this level, because this is the level for human review, because you often hear human in the loop. One thing that's very important for any team deploying these agents is the following study. So 88 89% of monitor alarms were false. This is an SEU study. And there is a huge issue of alarm fatigue. So this is not the problem of monitors that were bad, but if you take a human, let's say a human, and you drone it into alerts, at a certain level, the human will just stop reading them. So that is automation bias. So let's say you have a human who will be, let's read here. So you have a reviewer who sees 500 alerts an hour. At a certain point, if he receives 500 alerts an hour, he would just stop reading them, he would just stop agreeing. But then for those 500 alerts, everything worked fine. But for the first one, 500 first alert, where he really needs to stop and consider, where the agent really should not take an independent decision, he is already fatigued. He doesn't care. He would just approve it. And this is automation bias. This is an issue of automation bias. The same failure that makes SU staff tune out is the same failure that you will see it if you deploy these systems in industry. So you need to be very careful about which of these levels you're going to choose in your conception of these systems. So the lesson from the conclusion of all of this is that if you have a stop button that nobody is meaningfully pressing, it's not an enforcement, it's just theater. If your governance plan is a human approving everything, you have not built a control, you just built a rubber stamp with extra latency. You made your process even worse. So human in the loop is a real level, but only for the rare, high severity, low volume decisions. So if you bury it in the noise, this is very, very important. Please focus on this. If you bury it into the noise, it will fail silently, and you just invented a worse system than before. So today's world, especially the AI world, is drowning in acronyms. So let's forget them all. I will just teach you 3 of these acronyms. The rest is basically just a name, it's just a label stuck on one of these 3. Let's start for the first one. So decide versus enforce. So this is an idea where you're splitting the gate in 2. So you have your judge. Basically, it's gonna say whether allow or deny, and a judge that only says, and the bouncer, basically the agent that executes, that actually carries the actions. So carries out the actions that the judge decided. For example, the refund call, you have a refund call that arrives. The judge does the check. Was this approved? Was this not? It approves it, for example. The bouncer in our image, or I'll tell you later on the jargon, either lets the refund through or stops it. If you meet the jargon, the judge is called a policy decision point. So PDP. That's what you would meet. That's the meaning, the jargon from the industry, PDP. And the bouncer is a policy enforcement point. That's PEP. Now, idea 2 is fail close. This is what happens if the judge is unreachable. So let's say you have the second agent that is the judge here, and it's crashing or timed out. So fail closed means the default answer is deny, not allow. For agent, that is the right default. And here is the intuition. So you have a blocked action. You can just retry a second later, but for example, an unauthorized refund you may never get back. So when you are unsure, just stop. Just cut the run. Third idea is block at the tool call. So where does the bouncer physically stand? So it just sits in line right at the moment the agent tries to call a tool. The propose to execute from episode 1. Please check the episode if you don't know what I'm talking about. It holds the call until the judge answers. Basically, you're blocking. It makes the run synchronous between you're blocking the execution. The tool does not fire until the check passes. So this is something that you have in the following, the NVIDIA execution rails. The issue is that for all of this, only gates, so these are only single action gates. So wiring the real conformance checking of a whole process from that we have already explained in episode 18 So that's what we call prefix alignment. So the wiring of prefix alignment to automatic enforcement on a live agent still does not ship. What is meant by that? There is no tooling that is in production today that does the prefix alignment to automatic enforcement. So in a way, today the research is ahead of the tooling. So finally, one boundary to keep straight, because it gets conflated constantly. The EU AI Act, Article 14, requires that a human can interrupt a high-risk system through a stop button. So that mandates capability hand-on switch, not any particular technique. So detection is different from enforcement, and that's different from compliance. These are three different concepts. You can only learn them. Please check my different episodes, because each episode explains a certain one of these concepts. And there are three separate problems. Now, the idea here that we are trying to explain is that there is no shipping product that connects conformance-based detection, the prefix alignments, and declare monitoring that we have been talking about all of these in all of these episodes. And all of this is not yet shipped to automated enforcement on live LLM agents. So everyone is observing for now. Almost nobody is acting on observation automatically, which is clearly the next gateway to real governance. And right now, I think generally, if you are an AI engineer, especially an agentic AI engineer, this is the door that you need to walk through, like the conformance governance, because I really think that, as Jan LeCun said, these LLMs are very dumb. So that's one more thing. Now, these are the three elements. For a recap, these are the elements we went through. And finally, for next episode, we are putting the whole layer together across many interacting agents at once, where the deviation is not one agent's bad call, but the interaction between them. So this will be our last and final episode about agentic governance. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, and follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you.